Someone's asking what beer you're drinking. I think he's drinking Red Bull. I could be
I'm
mistaken though.
drinking a Monster, a diet blueberry Monster energy drink, which is the most repulsive thing I can imagine.
You are going to be jacked by the end of this interview.
Oh, hell yeah. I watched your Three Arrows video in preparation for this.
I'm glad.
I was like, oh, is he going to ask me about World War II? Is he going to start talking to me about that? Please don't.
So, first question right out of the gates. What are your thoughts on the Nuremberg trial?
Oh, wow. You know what? Best love to hate trial of the century. Like, what an amazing, thank you for asking.
um, okay, well, I could start with this question because I was going to have a bunch of pressing questions about your name, what happened to little Joel.
Yeah.
People in the chat were saying that you have a brother called Small Willie.
Mm-hmm.
And how did Big Joel come about?
Honestly, I could lie to you, but I just think it's like super funny. There's really no method to the madness there. Like, it's just he's just Big Joel. I have nothing. I'm so sorry. I wish I had some fun origin for you.
You could have made one up. I would have believed you.
I was just like, I don't know. He's just a big boy, especially because I didn't intend on ever showing my face when I started the channel.
Mhm.
So I would never have to be confronted with the fact that, I'm not Big Joel. But yeah, it was a random name, and I'm so sorry to everyone in your audience for disappointing them.
What made you want to show your face on camera for the first time? Because I know that makes a lot of people nervous.
Oh, it was the real first time I did it was with PragerU, because there's just no footage to show of those farts. There's just like every screen of them is just like enormous amounts of text being dunked on the audience. So I had to figure something out. So it was necessity, and then that video did really well, and I was like, is it because of my hot face?
Well, I'm sure that plays into it. Yeah.
So I just decided to keep it going sometimes in videos. I still sometimes don't show my face, but most of the time I do.
I have I guess a hardball question for you, and that is,
Oh shit!
why are you always so cozy? Like, I don't think I've ever seen you outside of a sweatshirt.
Uh,
Or sorry, a sweater, I should say.
what's the word for it? I like that it's part of my brand to wear sweaters. There are videos where I don't always wear sweaters, but I do try to impart my videos with like a coziness to them. I just feel like it's nice to make everyone feel comfortable and like they can have like a, because I feel like especially considering the rise of like aesthetic breadtube, where everyone's like doing something cool with their aesthetic. I feel like it's kind of fun to give people a place to like relax and just like watch something and not worry about it so much.
How did you find your place in the rise of BreadTube? Because like you've been doing this for a while, right? And I think BreadTube as a concept kind of just popped up in the last maybe year and a half or so, whenever that Reddit thread originated.
I started doing this 2 years ago, basically on the dot. What's the word? And yeah, the idea of BreadTube sort of emerged. Really, I never thought of myself as a part of it, and still kind of don't. I mean, I don't really feel like appropriating that as like, but I don't think any BreadTuber does, honestly. They usually feel discomfort with it.
Yeah.
As a level. I don't know. It definitely concerns me to be part of the club of people who like to be placed in like the club of people who are right, and then juxtaposed with the people who are wrong. I mean, the Reddit thread is called like YouTube but actually good or something like that, right? So it's like, I don't know, there's a lot going on there. I'm sorry for fidgeting with this coin. I'm not seeing
No, fidget away. It's good. I mean, this is a visual medium, right? We need to entertain the people. I should just be waving my hands during this entire interview.
Drinking this Monster energy drink. But yeah, I don't know. It was a surprise to me, especially because I never thought of myself as like being part of like, I mean, most of the time I was just making videos. It wasn't trying to make some big political statement, but, and then it sort of emerged that that's implicitly what you're doing on YouTube when you're not Sargon of Akkad, which is really the only bar that I've passed, just not being Sargon of
Oh my
Akkad.
God.
That's it.
Didn't you do an interview with Sargon?
No, I turned down an interview with Sargon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was that
Best
just
decision of my life.
was that just because like you knew how toxic he was? You didn't want to have to get into like a heated debate with him.
God, why was it? I don't know. I just thought it would be so dumb and terrible, and also the way he talked to me on like Twitter DMs, like pretending that we were like, I don't know. I felt like there was this pressure to be like buddy buddy in the behind the stage stuff. And he took like great offense when I insulted him in the DMs, and I was like, "Why are we doing this? Like,
I don't like you.
I don't want to talk to you. There's no way this debate's going to help anybody, right?" So,
oh, that's funny. Okay, I recently watched your Lion King video, and I don't know if are you familiar with Radical Reviewer?
Vaguely. I'm on to some discourse with them, and I've seen like I think one of their videos, but why?
So he has one on the Lion King, and his was kind of my first exposure to destroying my childhood. And then I saw yours, and yours did a little bit better job of being like, well, come on, let's be real. It slaps, okay? The original Lion King is still like an incredible part of our childhoods, but we should be aware. And you that was the first time I ever thought about this. It's basically venerating a monarchy that eats you.
Yeah. I mean,
I never thought of that as a child.
No, I mean, I feel like it's inherently like, it's impossible to tell a story that imposes some like morality onto nature without coming to some pretty extreme conclusions about what is and isn't moral, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, you're always going to come out, and that's all the Lion King does. It takes a descriptive statement about the way that nature is, with lions being the apex predators, and then turns that into a prescriptive statement that must be upheld at all costs for no reason at all. Yeah. And I don't know. You see that all the time in kids media with, animal cartoons, even with something like Shark Tale or Over the Hedge, there's always this struggle to find something even vaguely moral. Like it's hard to explain. But yeah.
Did you think of that going into it, or did that kind of become self-apparent when you saw the new one?
I mean, I feel like I always had a sense that the original Lion King was weird, but particularly with the whole circle of life thing being stupid and dumb. But no, I didn't really care. I said in the video, I didn't really care about that at all until I saw the new one, because I don't know, like the new one is just like, it's way more viscerally upsetting on that level. I guess that's what I'm just repeating my video, but yeah.
Well, I should repeat a point that you made in it, because it's one I hadn't thought of, but it's a very simple one, in that the circle of life dictates that we eat the antelope, but then they're like, it's okay because eventually we die and then we turn into grass, and then the antelope eats us, and then you're like, but the antelope also turns into grass. Yeah, I was like, that's such a simple point, but that's very, very true.
That was a fun one. I was actually surprised that video had some controversy attached to it. Like, people got a little bit mad at me. Yeah, and I sort of thought it was just a fun time. Well, they all started like the number one type of comment on that video is besides saying it was good, is like people being like actually lions are really good for the environment because they keep the prey in check. They keep the gazelles in check. So you don't understand that it actually is a good thing that Mufasa and Simba are doing it, which I feel like is such a perfectly on the nose like metaphor for the way people talk about overpopulation in real life.
I bet you weren't thinking of experiencing Lion King apologia, eh?
Like, no, actually, it's good to kill the global south because it's wrong that they are. There's too many of them, and that's the problem.
How horrifying! Like, I have the pleasure of never having seen any of the Disney remakes. Like, none of the live action. I still have not seen a single one. So people tell me that Aladdin's the worst one, Dumbo's the worst one, Malevolent's the worst one, but like. I don't know. Does Lion King take the cake?
I've only seen Lion King and Jungle Book, and Jungle Book kind of slapped. So
Oh,
Lion,
okay. I heard that actually. It's actually a good one.
yeah, it's pretty fun. I think it was before they like sucked. So,
Hmm.
but um, I mean, Lion King was bound to suck. Everyone knew it was gonna suck, and then it sucked, and it was
Yeah.
sort of pleasing that it sucked.
But you said it was
Um,
more horrifying because of the fact that it's actually real. Like well, I mean, it's not real, but it looks to be real, right? The uncanny valley has been surpassed.
yeah, I mean, I feel like it looks well. The movie and just looks amazing at every moment that the animals aren't talking to each other. But I mean, because I don't think the uncanny valley is a big problem, and we're already kind of used to CGI animals.
Hmm.
Uh, but there was moments where it was creepy, I think. But oh, there's 191 people here. Hey, everybody, what's up?
They're all friendly, I promise you. Well, at least 90% friendly.
Yeah, I don't know. That was a fun video to make. I had fun with it.
Oh no, that was a great video.
Thank you.
Well, when I first I for a school project had to write about the Lion King as a kid, and my mom was really always indoctrinating me with all this kind of like feminist theory and all this other kind of stuff. So I remember coming into that classroom and being like, I learned from my mother that the Lion King is racist because they only hired people of color to play the hyenas and other actresses. Yeah, and of course it didn't go over very well with my fellow classmates or anything like that. But back then, that was what was seen, I guess, is like the controversies with it. Whereas now, there's not as much controversies because they made it almost completely a multicultural cast. Right? There was maybe just three white actors.
You can make the cast as multicultural as you want, but at the end of the day, the hyenas are evocative of Black urban America, and everybody else isn't. So, I mean, it's pretty hard to get out of that. Like, but
well, that was the thing from your review, because I haven't seen it yet. That actually shocked me to learn that the hyenas are kind of painted as the other, right?
yeah, super. Yeah.
Can you explain that?
Like, explain how the hyenas come to represent the other within the logic of.
Yeah, because for people who haven't seen your video already, they might be like, "What is he talking about?"
Oh, I mean, even in the original, it's the case that the hyenas are sequestered off from the rest of the animals, seen as deviant, awful, ugly, grotesque, forced out to the perimeter, and then once they're introduced to the ecosystem, they destroy everything with their boundless appetite in a way that's like undeniably evocative of rhetoric surrounding welfare queens and other such groups of people, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, the concern over poor people exploiting the welfare state didn't start with The Lion King, right? It'd be crazy. That'd be amazing. The first ever movie to come up with that was The Lion King. But yeah, I don't know.
I normally save audience questions for the end of the show, but someone's asking something kind of pertinent. Problem. What's under your bed? Someone's like, is it a giant snake or a human?
Oh, big snake. Yeah, no, it's another blanket.
Oh,
I just wanted to impress you guys with my clean room. Is that so bad? Oh, wow. You had to thank you so much for exposing me like this.
So you're American, right?
Yeah.
But you reside in Britain?
No, I'm just here for 2 months right now.
Oh, nice. Is it a vacation or work or?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I'm working, but I'm also visiting my GF here.
Oh, nice. Oh.
Thank you, everybody. F in the comments, please.
You heard him. He already knows how to use Twitch. Look at that. You're gonna get like 50 Fs now. I'll wait for them Fs. Oh, look at them Fs.
Oh, look at those Fs. Oh yeah. Thank you for supporting my love.
Oh, this is wholesome. Someone's asking what beer you're drinking. I think he's drinking Red Bull. I could be mistaken.
I'm drinking a diet blueberry Monster energy drink, which is the most repulsive thing I can imagine.
You are going to be jacked by the end of this interview.
Oh, hell yeah. I had a 6-pack before, but now I'm going to fucking wreck you guys with my unbelievable body. I'm sorry to the people in the chat commenting on my mic. I am not at home, okay? Do not judge me. Thank you. Goodbye.
I'll turn you up a little bit in case they're still worried
Could you
about that.
please ban everybody who is saying that? Thank you so much.
Yes.
Could you?
I'll
Yeah.
hammer ban all the
Would
chat right now.
you mind? Yeah.
um, the other video that I watched of yours recently that was a lot more heavy, obviously, was the one on incels. And
Mm,
I know when I was making our Steven Crowder video, I had to sit through maybe 30 hours of nonstop Crowder to be able to make that. And then I've never taken upon myself to do a deep dive into Stefan Molyneux for that very reason,
yeah.
because I don't want to have that in my brain. But I noticed you went through like an entire one of his seminars.
Yeah. That's the thing about Stefan, right? Like, for what his videos are, I think, the epitome of like filth, right? Like, they're
Hmm.
incredibly awful
Hmm.
to a point. I mean, especially because even for somebody like him, who, even for the YouTube right, which already panders to like um, the alt right and white supremacy, Stefan Molyneux just has totally owned up to the idea that it's like fine to be a white supremacist and
I'm
you
an
should feel on.
empiricist.
I'm an empiricist. I can't. Like,
I've spoken out against white nationalism
also,
before.
his voice is terrifying and creepy,
It
and when he
is.
gets like passionate about things, he feels like an alien. He's like
Yeah.
really gross.
Yeah. Yeah. He's
Uh,
very off-putting.
yeah, which I guess is part of his like his quiet intensity. I guess is part of his charm, but um,
But
he
well, I was going to ask. So you sat through that interview. What did you take from it outside of the fact that he's obviously got the wrong take on everything?
what I sort of get from it is like I think probably the most common gesture, if we're leaving behind things like um, capital P politics pertaining to economic policies or even things like identity politics, forgetting about all that, the number one thing that conservatism wants to do to us is to remove our ability to interpret things
Mm-hmm.
with just our own sense data and sensibilities. Like, it's trying, like, even with something like Anita Sarkeesian or Elliot Rodger, like there's a constant emphasis on this idea that whatever you just did interpretively is bad because of some made up shit that I just came up with. Like, don't you get it? It's just a game. You can't say that about this. That's against the rules.
Mm-hmm.
Or with Elliot Rodger, don't jump over the victims. Like, everything is always trying to get to the point where you're not allowed to have a thought about a thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? You just have to say, that was sad. There was no way to know how to prevent it, but if there was a way to prevent it, it's probably his gross stepmother who had a nude online,
Mm-hmm.
right? Nothing can be bigger.
Yeah.
Nothing can be made important to these people, which I
Mm-hmm.
think is something that probably the thing that I most actively try to advocate against on my channel.
Mm-hmm. What was your opinions? Did you know a lot about Elliot Rodger going into that video, or did you learn about it on the process?
I was always really into Elliot Rodger, to be honest.
Okay.
Did you ever watch his videos? Like,
I did after the fact because it was just one of those news things, right? And then I was so curious as to like what
right.
drove someone to do this. It was the same thing with we had an incel attack in Canada as well. And again, that's when I started reading about. It's one of those rabbit holes you go down, right? Like I didn't before a couple of the major attacks. I didn't know a lot about incels. I didn't know
Right,
about the
no.
Reddit thread. I didn't know about this, insular community that was
Mhm.
fostering this. And then of course you start to wonder, like, what exactly is the causality here, right? Is it are these things innate within society? Have they found groups online that are radicalizing them further? Is Joe Rogan right about everything? Or is the truth more likely that Joe Rogan's wrong about everything?
I try to.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, no. I just try to like. I think that like questions of causality are beyond me, right? Like, I don't know what causes somebody to go out and kill 10 people, right?
Yeah.
And any explanation I could provide to those events would be fundamentally inadequate
Mhm.
because if I started explaining it too much, it would come to the point where I was saying, yeah, actually, it makes sense for him to have killed 10 people. Good,
Mhm.
it's unfortunate that it happened, but from his perspective, it kind of made sense,
Mhm.
which is not true. Elliot Rodger shouldn't have done that, no matter, like,
Yeah.
I feel like that's an obvious statement, but like,
Yeah.
but my point is that, like, more than trying to pin down some causal link, trying to say Elliot Rodger went on an incel forum, and because of the incel forum, he started killing people and thinking about women this way. I just think it's important to take a step back and be like, Elliot Rodger was a misogynist. Elliot Rodger was a white supremacist. Elliot Rodger killed 10 people.
Yeah.
Right? Without some sort of need to explain the nightmare away, just to own it, own the facts of the event and interpret them the way you see fit.
But I think the reason that concerns a lot of people is they're curious, how could we prevent it? Or how is this something that's happening in a vacuum, for example?
Yeah, I would be way out of my league to start talking about how to prevent people from murdering other people, right?
Yeah, fair enough.
Like if I could do that, I would probably try to do that more. But
yeah.
I don't know how to. I mean, I feel like de-radicalization has to be a good idea, right? Like there's no way that's going to like bite us in the ass to make men stop hating women, you know?
Absolutely.
I also don't even know the path to doing that, right? Like, what is it? Well, sorry, I'm trying to gather my thoughts here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's like, these are the big questions.
I don't have any methodology for making people stop thinking the awful things that they think, right? And I think that just in general, actually, I understand that these tragedies are awful and should be prevented in any way we can. But I do think that the sort of the entire breadtube scene puts this huge emphasis on de-radicalization as like the number one priority, and like getting Nazis to not being Nazis anymore, which is like, I don't know. I'm skeptical, one, of our ability to do that. And two, I'm just like, I don't know. There's other important things to do, right? Like, there's other ways to have important work that don't involve trying to like constantly humor the alt-right until they buy into the shit we say.
Yeah, no, that's really fair. What is your process exactly when you're making your videos? Because I mean, more often than not, especially from bigger names, I see people retweet your videos saying like, "This is the right take." Like, you often get, "This was the," and I usually agree with them. I was like, "Yeah, Big Joel usually has the right take on this topic."
What's my process? I like watch the movie a few times, or whatever I do a few times, and I try to always like approach it from, particularly when I'm talking about like politics and the alt-right and stuff like that. I try to never approach it as like an argument. I just try to approach it as like a film. But just because I feel like there's a lot of emphasis I could be placing on trying to disprove Sargon of Akkad wrong about something. But in a lot of ways, he's self-evidently wrong, right? Like, it doesn't take that much energy to disprove him about a lot of topics. But also, I think it's relevant to ask what's at stake in him being right on this. Like, why would somebody want to be correct that we can't talk about feminism in our favorite video games, right? Why would Elliot...
And what's the answer to that? Because that is a bigger question.
I think it's all about trying to strip agency away from people. Like, I think it's all about trying to make it so that there's this sort of homogeneity in the way that we approach topics, such that sort of I feel like I'm going to start sounding like I'm appropriating the language of like YouTube skeptics here.
I think everyone knows where your heart lies.
No, it's just like, I don't like to, whatever. It's like, I feel like it's...
we start calling you the amazing Joel.
I think it is a very pertinent question, and one that I'm not sure of the answer of, frankly, why we would see something like feminism as such a threat. But I do think it comes down to a lot of personal psychological reasons for a lot of them. A fear, like I think a lot of them feel entitled to what they have, right? Both entitled to the way America is and its status quo, and entitled to video games and superhero movies being the way they remember them when they were a kid. Something as simple as that.
Which is unfortunate because there hasn't been a huge change. I mean, there is obviously some marginal change, but it's not as if like white people still don't dominate the majority of protagonists in both video games and films.
Right. Well, I think they're right, though. I think they're right, and it's good that they're right. That I mean, I think they're right that people are coming and knocking on the door of these things and saying
absolutely.
no. Oh
yeah.
And if that's the sort of thing that they are afraid of, they're right to be afraid here.
Mm-hmm. But they see it as like an intrinsic threat to their basically old paradigm of how they wanted the world to be.
Yeah, I think Innuendo Studios said something along those lines. So he talked about being like having your sensibility and the idea of the world being fundamentally a fair meritocratic place being shattered by all these ideas that implicitly present the idea, such as feminism, anti-capitalism, anything like that, then in fact the world is not a meritocracy, that it is not this inherently fair place to most people who live here. So I think that they have good reason to be afraid. In fact, it's better that they are, right? But regardless...
That's actually a very good point. I've never heard anyone say it like that.
Thank you.
Well, I almost feel like a comic book villain or something. Like, I'm glad you're afraid. Like it's a good thing. Interesting. What's your background? Because are you self-taught? I don't want to sound like a credentialist now, but I'm just curious what your field of study is.
I was an English major.
Me too.
College.
Yeah, useless degrees for the win.
I loved it. Super helpful to me. But yeah, I was just an English major, and then I got out of college and basically immediately started making videos, and now I'm old. Now I'm an old man, I guess.
Next thing I knew. And is YouTube your full-time career now?
Now it is, yeah. I mean, yeah. Which is fun. I mean, it's stupid that is part of my life. But, yeah, it's pretty cool if you think about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a beautiful thing. Like, I would rather people like you earn their living off doing it than say someone like Sargon of a Cat. Yeah,
I guess I would too, because I'm me. But, like...
I like me.
What is going on in this chat? Everyone's just saying, like, everyone's just making portmanteaus of my name and other, like...
it's like the internet. You know how like memes work, right? Like it just evolves and then they run with
I always feel, when I interact with like Discord or Twitch, I feel incredibly boomerish, even though I'm 23. Like...
Better than the quartering chat.
Yeah, that was a nightmare. Whoa,
what happened there?
Oh, I talked to the quartering for about an hour.
He spoke to you? I've reached out to him like 6 times and he never responds.
Really?
Yeah, well, I think he like there's a lot of people like Sargon too. Sargon reached out to me maybe like almost half a year ago before we were larger, and then all of a sudden I guess he watched some of our videos and then just completely stopped responding.
Damn.
Yeah,
Sargon wanted to talk to me only. I feel like, well, what happened was that Sargon saw my Anita Sarkeesian video, made one of the worst response videos I've ever seen in my life to it, and then what's the word for it? And then he saw my reaction to it and then just never spoke to me again under any circumstances.
Fair enough. Well, tell me what happened with the quartering. That's amazing. I would love to know this because I just recently started watching his stuff.
Somebody said the quartering was so bad in that debate, and I wish I felt that way. I feel like I completely failed, like completely flubbed it. What? And it would make me this... Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just got really, like, overwhelmed by the chat. Like, I was so surprised to see all of the, like, the parentheses up in that chat.
I'd like to say I would be too, but I'm not. That doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, I have watched a lot of the Quartering recently because we were making some videos on him, and like,
Yeah.
he loves referencing the Cabal. You know, he's big on the Cabal.
Yeah.
He uses that expression a lot, and like, I mean, that's dog whistly enough for myself.
The real reason I think I lost the debate, though, is because, not lost it, I don't give a shit about the conversation. The reason why I think that I did poorly is because at the end of it, he was like, yeah, man, I'm not homophobic, though. And I was like, you know what, Quartering, I don't know if you're homophobic either. I, to some extent, think that you don't give a shit, and you're just releasing 3 videos every day, and you're pandering to your homophobic audience, and that's just, that's how you're doing it, right? And I felt really shitty about that for days, calling his audience homophobic like that.
I thought you were going to say you felt shitty because you didn't call him homophobic.
No, that is why I feel shitty. I felt shitty for taking responsibility off of him and putting it on random people who just like, it's so stupid.
What kind of stuff did you guys discuss?
The Quartering, whenever the Quartering talks about gay characters in a bit of media, especially kids media, I'm sorry, I'm popping bubble wrap right now.
You're like a magician. You're like flipping coins, popping bubble wrap. Like, there's so much extra material you give in the chat.
What's the word for it? Whenever the Quartering talks about gay boys in media, he always gets around to the same point, which is that it's inappropriate for children. And I spent a lot of time just being like, yeah, that is homophobic. And then the Quartering was like, homophobia is a fear of the gays. And I was like, okay, well, it's anti-gay, whatever. And he was like, well, it's just my opinion. And I was like, it's an anti-gay opinion. I don't know. That was where a lot of the debate lived and died, which is regrettable.
And then you just got completely distracted by the chat.
No, that was only at the end.
Okay.
I don't know. You can finally he released the debate. So
nice. I'll definitely watch that. I'll watch that on stream. Oh yeah.
Wow. Whoa.
I'm sure you did way better than you thought you did. I mean, it's probably just one of those hindsight things. And you got derailed by the chat, and obviously that last comment where he was talking about his, latent homophobia, and you feel like you gave him a pass on that. That's probably what resides in you more than how you actually performed in the conversation.
Is that the 3 Arrows? Hey, 3 Arrows.
Oh, 3 Arrows is here. Yeah. Oh, yeah. He drops in here all the time. This guest is very interesting. I would like to know more about him. 3 Arrows. This is your first introduction to Big Joel?
No, it's not. He's joking.
Oh, okay. I was like, well, Dan, you must have missed the very start of this interview where he said he prepared for this interview by watching our interview. Which I don't know how that would have helped you, because I wasn't going to ask you anything about World War II or Hitler or Germany. But I can. Was the Quartering, is he pretty much highest in your list of those kind of reactionaries? Because like I've also been introduced to No BS, which I find even worse than the Quartering. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
I'm only familiar with him. I think that Sean made a video about No BS at some point. I don't know.
Okay.
No, I don't watch his videos though. As far as worst reactionaries go, geez, I mean the Quartering is just baby Sargon.
Yeah.
That's all he is. No, I don't think he's the worst. In fact, I sort of feel like I don't know. I feel like there's this sensibility that the Quartering has, and the reason why I wanted to talk about to him was because I kind of like fundamentally agree with him that corporations are these laughable, pandering things that should be mocked, and they don't actually tend to have the morals that they pretend to. And I think that that's a worthwhile thing to say. Obviously, the Quartering sucks the fullness of my ass, and I hate it.
Can someone clip that, please? Yeah, I do as well. But like, I think someone like you were mentioning earlier, Stefan Molyneux, way more pernicious, right? Or even people like Steven Crowder. I think like Steven Crowder is grating to me. I cannot stand to listen to him. Yeah, for more than very very small amount of time. But I just think that those people, they probably reach more individuals and can influence and indoctrinate them a little bit more than someone like the Quartering, who I think just kind of applies to gamer bros who want to hear someone talk about feminism and stuff like that.
Yeah, I don't really know who's more effective. I mean, if you're watching Stefan Molyneux at this point, I feel like it might scare you off that
Hmm.
he's a fucking white supremacist. Like most
Yeah.
people who watch Stefan Molyneux aren't white supremacists. And the evidence of that, arguably, is that when you say Stefan Molyneux was a white supremacist, his stands come in the comments to say, no, he's not. You somehow took that clip out of context. And he said that he was a white supremacist.
I don't know how you can take the one where he's basically at a white supremacist rally in his travels out of context,
Yeah.
or
No, it's impossible.
yeah.
These people are obsessed with the idea of straw manning.
Hmm.
It's literally their fixation that somebody is somehow misrepresenting their favorite thing.
Hmm.
And then when you talk to them, it turns out that they just agree with the position that you said that the person had, right?
Absolutely.
Like, I don't know. It's such a weird dynamic of like, that person didn't actually say that, but if they did say that, I agree with them.
Hmm.
So it kind of doesn't fucking matter, does it?
What are your views on the left right now, and like where do you see yourself in it? Do you think of it as a movement? Do you think of it as like, are you just trying to contribute to the narrative and trying to like what do you see the purposes behind your videos as well? We're going for the big questions, Big Joel.
Boop, doop, boop, how do I see the left right now? I don't see them. I mean, I don't think that I think that presenting myself as some significant voice on the left would be doing myself a almost surreal credit that's just not earned in any way.
Hmm.
But like, I'm not trying to say like, what's the word? Shit. You know, here's what I will say is that like, I feel like whenever you talk about the left these days, there's this enormous conversation about like cancel culture and woke scolds, as like somebody like Vosh would put it, or whoever.
Hmm.
This sort of disagreement between the dirtbag left and the whatever regular left.
SJW left or somewhere in
SJW
between.
left, fine. Well, I think that's dumb for
Hmm.
sure. That's stupid. Shouldn't do that. But
Hmm.
other than that, well, I take it back. I don't think it's dumb. I think it makes perfect sense to dislike people who say that coming to the defense of an identity that's been marginalized for years is inherently some act antithetical to changing the way that capital is distributed in our culture. Like, I don't see their point genuinely, and I don't see the benefit of being rude or mean to people constantly. So
Yeah.
I'll say that about that.
Hmm.
Um, but
Yeah, you seem way too nice for that.
I mean, it's not, I know it's not niceness. I mean, it's just like, what's the word for it?
Don't be a dick.
It just makes you look bad
Yeah.
to say that people are woke tards. It makes you look like an idiot.
Yeah.
Like it does not come across well.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
And
it's
also it's finding an excuse to say the word retard on your Twitter account.
hmm Yeah, I
So
mean,
that,
it's just repackaging ableist language, basically.
right.
Yeah.
So I'm not down with that.
Hmm.
But as far as like, I'll also say that I think a little bit too much is made out of the idea that the left is this group of people that eats itself and we destroy everything for not being pure enough. I don't know. I think most of the time that's not completely fair. But yeah. But this is all very internet, isn't it? Right?
Yeah.
Like I don't have any like thought about the left, how to get Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren in the White House
Hmm.
2020. I have no thought about that. I am not capable of it.
You're not very heavily involved in like politics.
Yeah, I don't really know. I'm not like any sort of expert in it, and I don't have a big thick mind for figuring out like how to get. I think that one thing that I personally try to combat in myself, but which is hard, is a general sense of malaise and enemy
Hmm.
among the left, a
Hmm.
feeling that we can't actually meaningfully affect change.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, that's really hard to get over, isn't it? Right? Like it's
Yeah.
hard to push yourself into thinking that you can have a meaningful effect on things.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I
Since,
totally agree. Especially with global warming and everything else. I mean, it starts
yeah,
to.
it's like it's upsetting to think about these things. It's inherently really scary to do.
Mhm.
And that's why I don't feel comfortable calling myself something like breadtube, because I
Mhm.
genuinely am more concerned with media. I genuinely, that's what I talk about. Like,
Mhm. Yeah, no,
uh,
absolutely. Are you like an anti-capitalist? Do you bring that into your content at all?
um, I don't really know. Yeah, I guess I'm an anti-capitalist. I don't. I, I you're coming into my like stupid zone insofar as um, I don't really know. So often, I feel like this lingering question among anti-capitalists is like, what's the revolution going to be? Like, when's that happening? Right? Like,
Mhm.
who's going to do that? Right? There's this genuine sense of like, again, like I don't. I would say that I'm very critical of capitalism, and that's about where I have it. And of course, that comes through in my videos.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
um, anything past that, to the point where I'm like giving instructions on how to organize, like I'm way. I don't know. Just an inadequate. I'm not like a leader of men, right? I don't have like that sort of manner, I guess you could say.
I would like to
Uh,
see you do some scenes from Braveheart at some point.
oh hell yeah! Um,
um, people are still asking me to ask you about your twin brother, Little Willie.
he's dead.
He's dead. Well, there you go.
Yeah,
There you have it, Ron.
yeah, he's dead.
What do you have coming up next? And or are you allowed to talk about that in terms of your next projects?
Oh yeah, I'm talking about fuck. Oh, there's this movie called The Christmas Shoes that I released so far. It's on Patreon, but it'll be out in like a week. And then
Mhm.
I'm talking about Trolls, which is a DreamWorks movie. And then I'm talking about Twilight. And then I'm talking about conservatism. There's a lot of videos.
What is your spicy take on Twilight?
Oh God, I think I'm gonna try to do some sort of a revisionist take on it. Like, um, I think that like its quality as being like this work of anti-feminist propaganda is overstated, to say the least,
Mhm.
and that I'm just going to do a deep dive talking about gender, I guess, throughout the series.
Did you enjoy what you just watched and now crave more Nectar of the Damned? Did you know that if you're watching on YouTube, you're only getting half the surfy experience? We upload all of our content commercial and censorship free to our Patreon. Due to the general demonetization of our videos, we now upload half of our original content directly to those who can help us produce this show. Want even more nectar than that? Well, come join us at twitch.tv/TheSerfsTV, where we do weekly live streams, debates, interviews, AMAs, and more. If you're an Amazon Prime member, you can help support our show 100% free by subscribing to our Twitch channel. So come join us, be merry, and know that your support is helping us do great things.
We would like to thank Miranda Marone for being our Lord and Savior. Please go subscribe to their SoundCloud and help support their art as they're helping support ours. We'd like to thank our lords, Ricky Pilgrim, I'm Raft, Michaelia Schmidt, Molly thinks she's cool. They are the pillars of our organization and helping us complete great things. And now presenting our Knights of the Round Table. Josh Mickelson, Schizosaurus, Dr. Zayas, Dylan Blythe, Paul Parfit, Andre Lynn Epperly, Daniel Kahn, Josh Mickelson, Angela, Jed Lewis, Cooper Pilot, and Todd Lajeunesse.